All right, it's been quite a week for kind of creative, different indie AA games that only take a couple hours to complete. So I made a video on Stray earlier this week, got some new folks who came in, so thanks. Happy to have you here. But the other game I've been playing this week is As Dusk Falls. This is a story-based game for Xbox and Steam, and it is very interesting. I'm a fan, a lot of you guys probably know, like I'm a fan of like these story-type games where you make decisions and do some quick time events, some button presses, and things happen. I really like The Quarry. I am a fan of Detroit Become Human and all those Quantic Dreams games for all their faults. And so this one I was immediately intrigued by the trailers. The trailers made it seem very different, and I gotta give it props to that most importantly. I'm not gonna spoil anything, just so you know, but I gotta give props really to the fact that it kind of tells a very non-video gamey story. It's a bit more of like a crime story. It's kind of like a Breaking Bad, Justified type of thing, and I found that really refreshing. I think the biggest thing about this game, I think I ultimately like it, is that the story is just so different and the story is really interesting. I think the main focus here was just on the writing and coming up with this stuff and these branching paths, where other games have had to also focus on gameplay or had to focus on just insane graphics or storytelling stuff. This one really seemed to just focus on the writing, and I think that really paid off. So the story basically, like without spoiling it, just the basic setup is kind of like a Route 66 small town where a robbery happens and these young kind of teens, early 20s punks kind of get wrapped up in a robbery and then a hostage situation in a motel, and then how that affects a bunch of people. And then basically you kind of experience different people's lives before and after these events and get to know them and make a lot of important decisions that do change the story. Now you've heard that a lot, branching paths, making choices and stuff like that, but here the emphasis really is on a very kind of real, more human story. Not a lot of action, more just this one action point and then the surrounding circumstances. And that's what made it interesting, because it was kind of an unconventional tale. Like, it's unconventionally told, yeah, because it's a video game, but just because it felt like it was something a little bit different. Got some pretty interesting characters. Not all of the voice acting is that great, unfortunately. I think the writing is decent, but a lot of the voice acting I found it made some characters kind of annoying, except for Elias Tefexis. He voices one of the main characters. He's also the voice of Adam Jensen, so it's really funny to have this main character, Vince, who's just kind of like a dope guy who has to kind of like, you know, get his balls and stand up and do the right thing. But it's basically like him being like, oh, I'm sorry about that, honey. Oh, no. But he just sounds so badass. It's ridiculous. Still, he does great. I think he was the high point. Him and a couple of other characters, I don't want to like spoil, but some good voice acting, some not so great voice acting. But the presentation I actually really like, which at first initially was kind of a turnoff. So essentially what this is you're looking at still images or art with different effects, and these flat images are in 3D rendered environments. So it's kind of told more like a graphic novel, comic book presentation. The way they do it, the way they kind of like paint over real images kind of reminds me of like Max Payne. So you got all these like Max Payne graphic novel looking ass people, and I think it actually works. It's effective enough. There's a lot of effects, there's a lot of good music, there's a lot of still moving things within these images that just make it all convincing, and I pretty quickly just kind of fell right into it. And I think what it does do is allows for a lot of focus on certain characters' facial expressions, where that's just the face they're making. They're not moving around a lot, so it kind of just helps sell certain things in kind of like an opposite way, if that makes sense. The other thing I really like that's also kind of unconventional is that it's multiplayer. It's up to 7 players via the couch, or jumping in through a mobile app, which you may have seen similar games do that and stuff, but I really like the way they do it here. Like, the app is super clean, really simple, easy to hop into a lobby that you create if you're playing on Xbox or PC or anything like that. And then like it doesn't even make you sign up or make an account or anything. You just enter the code and you're in. Very nicely implemented, very happy about that. And it's kind of like a voting decision make thing. So you kind of get into a situation where someone's like, I can't believe you picked that. Why didn't you pick that? And that can be for some fun. But it's weird because this is not really like a fun, haha, woohoo, party around the couch type of game. It's like a AMC or FX drama. This is like more of like the Better Call Saul of video game stories. It's not on that level. Don't get it twisted. I also think Better Call Saul is like one of the best things ever made. And when that show is done, you're damn right I'm going to make a fucking video about that. But anyway, Where was I? It's a little weird to play with friends because it's very heavy. It's also very long. It's not necessarily paced or broken up in fun, playable chunks with your friends, but at least props to them for implementing this and implementing it cleanly, and also the fact that all of the decisions are really, really good. Like, I really like the decisions I had to make in this game. There's one kind of like tense, dramatic couple divorce type conversation that is so intense, and every decision so perfectly like executed, whichever way you answer it, like the tension was perfect. And I want stuff like that from games. I don't always necessarily want it to be like monster coming. Do you hide in the closet or do you run away? I like when it's more of these dramatic things, and they nailed a lot of it. They really nailed it too, because like after finishing the game once, and I think it took me about 6 hours or so, a little bit longer than I expected, but I watched, like I skipped through a streamer who played through, and they felt very differently about certain situations. They felt very different about certain decisions. Even like me playing with my wife for a little while, she was gunning for way different choices than I was. So some of it is designed to really kind of be open to interpretation, and like you reflect kind of like your own thing onto this. And then the game does a really good job at the end of every chapter kind of breaking down, like it's almost a little personality type, like Rorschach test, where it tells you like, hey, these types of decisions you made says this about you. And I look at the game and I'm like, why are you attacking me, dude? Like, I didn't sign up for this. But I still thought that was really well done. Also with the game just very plainly and simply spelling out a timeline for you of where your decisions could have changed things. And things definitely do change. I can't quite tell if it's like end all be all, like mega changes, but there are some major character deaths that can happen at specific points that I didn't expect, and how the game continues on without it is pretty interesting. Like, because the game does jump around a lot, it does get really complex, so it's pretty interesting and respectable how I think they pulled this off. It's kind of like a story about family, but like not in like that cheesy way. Like, you know how like you interview, like, you know, like in interviews or something, or an actor or filmmaker is like, well, it's really, the story's really about family. But like, that's a cliched thing, but I actually feel like it works here. I feel like they really sell a lot of it. The relationships are convincing. The decisions are convincing. And by the end of it, I was just surprised how into it I was. I was really into the story. The quick time events, not so much. Quick time events are starting to go away for these types of games. Like The Quarry also was a game where the inputs that you have to do are really, really simple, nothing intense. Now, for accessibility purposes, I'm all for that. Like, some people just can't rapidly mash buttons or do certain things and just want to experience a story, so options are great. But I like, you know, where certain games, like say some Quantic Dream games, like the earlier ones, especially like Indigo Prophecy and stuff, like if I just fucked up because I sucked, like that'll change something, and I'm like, oh man, well, gotta just keep rolling with that. I like screwing up and rolling with the punches. Now, what this game does, at least, like the quick time events are so lame and don't really have too many ramifications, but what I do like is that the moment-to-moment decisions are really kind of like those quick time events, you know? Like, those are the things that really will change things, and then you have to roll with it and deal with the ramifications, because a lot of the times it does do a thing where it gives you some options and then you pick one and then it doesn't go anywhere near like how you thought it, and you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I like those surprises. It also does a clever thing where options will pop up the longer you wait, like say a timed dialogue response. If you wait, more options will pop up. Sometimes even the option to just not say anything. And I like stuff like that. It's a good way of kind of being like, oh, if you just rush to judgment and choose the option, if you just breathe for a second, you could have gotten another option. It's almost like kind of like real life. So it is cool. It is creative. I'd say don't go in expecting this insane, crazy thing. Like, if you want a Detroit Become Human, no way. But if you like more indie titles, you're a little bit more forgiving of things, but you like a nice, simple tale with some weird voice acting, but overall some cool stuff, I'd say it's worth checking out. And like, I hate to always say it, but like, if you do have something like Game Pass, and yeah, sure. Like, if you've come hot off of a lot of other story-based games and you're looking for one more, it's a little different, I'd say go for this. Really, the thing I liked about it the most is that it wasn't action-packed, and it was more focused on the actual storytelling aspect, and I think it succeeds for that. There are some change-ups here and there. Like I said, I think it does encourage more than one playthrough. I don't think it's necessarily one of those games where it's like you have a million different endings and it's crazy ambitious, but I think it doesn't really matter. But I think what it is just the story that they were trying to tell here is pretty interesting. Really hard to talk about it without spoiling things if you can't tell, but not bad. Honestly, I went into this not knowing, I was like, what's the deal with this game, dude? But It's pretty cool. Even if you're like me and at first you weren't really into the art style and the more simplified game thing, how it is kind of like a mobile game necessarily, like it's just kind of like a slideshow thing, still consider going for it if you like interesting stories and you have some tolerance for that stuff. Sometimes it's nice to just have something different, you know, instead of save the robot, shoot the bad guy, question mark. It's more like discipline your kid or not, or yell at your wife and get divorced. Trust the cops, don't trust the cops, make that phone call, don't, like smaller, granular, but very interesting things. Just refreshing. But I think I've talked enough about this, especially before I spoil anything. You know, definitely let me know what you think if you jump into it. It's a weird one, it's a different one, but I love to know what you think about the story. If you can talk about it without really spoiling anything. I personally think that it ended up properly cashing most of the checks it wrote, storytelling-wise, but if you feel a little different, I can see it being up to interpretation. Let me know. Let me know what you think about this and similar games, and really QTEs, QuickTime events. Do you miss some of those dying off? I know it was a thing where people dunked on them, but for storytelling games, you know, it's nice to have a little bit of input. I don't know, whatever. I think there's a whole conversation there, so definitely let me know what you think. I appreciate you coming here and listening to me ramble about this game. This is what I just do here. I just talk about stuff I love, and I love video games and movies. So clicking the like button is all you got to do to help me out. I appreciate that. And shout out to YouTube membership and Patreon people that have my back. Much appreciated. But that's it. I've talked enough. I'm Jake Baldino. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe because video games. Pizza's on me.